Welcome back. It could make or break the holiday for somebody if you or someone in your family struggles to hear, and getting together with them and family can be more frustrating than fun sometimes.
Yeah, that's right. And you can change that. Dr. Greg Swingle is joining us now, the audiologist and owner of Arizona Hearing Specialists. Good to see you again.
Thank you.
Especially this time of year, because we're all getting together. I know that it's so frustrating for my grandmother when she's in a room, a group of people, and we're getting ready to open presents, and she's struggling to hear, and she just gets so frustrated. That's one of the challenges, right? What do you hear from people?
Yeah, absolutely. You got to keep in mind that when you have a hearing loss, you don't hear sounds as well, and that's one thing, but also the auditory system just doesn't work the same way. So in a challenging listening environment, you're not going to be able to pick out what you care about and focus on that and weed out the other stuff quite as well. So that's what I wanted to kind of talk about, some strategies involving just trying to set yourself up for successful communication today.
Yeah, challenging hearing environments and a group and a family gathering, you know, at a dinner table definitely counts as that. So it can be difficult to differentiate particular voices, right, from the whole mass of the sound. So there's strategies we're going to talk about related to each part of a conversation or each part of a group. So we're starting with sender or talker. What is that?
Just kind of think of it as the talker, like you said, and that is really the person that's sending the message. And the key point there, I would say, is I have patients pretty routinely coming into my office saying, you know what, I don't think I have a hearing loss. I just think people mumble and they talk too quickly. And so I say, well, you know, that's very true. People do mumble and they talk too quickly, but you also might have a hearing loss. And so, you know, we kind of work through that. But it is important, if you are the talker, to keep in mind that if you just slow down even a little bit, you don't have to go at a snail's pace, but just slow down and enunciate. That'll help a lot, just in general, but especially if somebody has a hearing loss.
All right, so we need to remember that as a talker. Strategies related to the message. I mean, obviously, enunciating your words goes along with that, but what else?
The message itself is, I bring that up because some people, especially in the holidays, you get together and you're having maybe some cookie decorating over here, and then you've got the football game over there, and there might be various things happening. So it's important, if you're going to be hosting something, to keep in mind that there might be lots of different messages all happening at once. And we need to try to set that up, the environment up in a way as such that each of those messages can get from the sender to the receiver successfully.
And so environment is related to message in that way, but how is environment important to fix on its own?
The biggest two things there, I would say, is the environment is going to involve some level of noise. We don't live in a quiet world. There's usually something going on. And so if you can separate the conversation from the noise, then that's going to be really helpful. And then the second thing is really the distance, and that's related to the noise. If you can be farther away from the noise, that's helpful, but then if you can be closer to the person you want to hear, that's extremely helpful. That way the person doesn't have to raise their voice so you hear them, you're just closer so you hear them quicker.
So we have to be in the moment as talkers and think like the person who we're talking to if they have trouble listening. Let's talk about context.
Context is really quite simply just providing a little bit more information. So going back to the message part, if the person that you're having a conversation with is already familiar with the topic, then it's a lot easier. If they're not, though, if you're providing new information, then it's helpful if you just provide extra details here and there. And if you're also keeping in mind that if they don't have a lot of context, then some of those other things like background noise can have a bigger impact because they aren't able to guess what you're saying is easy, because they don't have the context of the message.
And now maybe arguably the one you can control the most, and that is the listener, right?
Absolutely.
Yourself. Strategies related to them.
And really the biggest thing is people are often pretty hesitant to do something about their hearing loss. So I can absolutely tell you that is one of the biggest things that we can control. If you suspect that you have a hearing loss, get your hearing checked. If you know that you have a hearing loss, make sure that you're either proactively making sure that your hearing technologies are working the best that they can, that they're updated technology, and just make sure you're doing your part to make sure the listener part is kind of taken care of.
The last time that we met, it was all in relation to like paying attention, because if it starts getting worse, it's hard to get back to where you were before, right? Because it's the brain messages along with the hearing.
Absolutely. Like I said, the auditory system really changes when you have a hearing loss. It's not just a loss of sound sometimes. Your auditory system starts changing, and then the way you start processing sound changes. And so if we can continue to stimulate that auditory system, it's really helpful. So doing that sooner rather than later is always a good thing.
incredibly important message, and the technology is getting better and better every single year, so you have to make your appointment as soon as possible. Always great to see you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Doctor.
And if you schedule an appointment in January, you're eligible for a no-obligation hearing aid trial. If you want more info, check out arizonahearing.com or call 520-600-EARS.